I always like to remind everybody that, when you talk to your top scientists today, they really believe sports nutrition is considered the new healthy aging, something that keeps our bodies active by filling in our gaps throughout our life, just the way I make athletes do it. That's an English way of spelling aging, by the way, just in case someone's out there looking. Okay, so we're going to talk about NO7RAGE today, kind of go through the goal, rationale, key points, and so forth. I do want to qualify a few things as we get through here. I'll do a quick intro of what we use performance products for. This is a performance product, unequivocally, to improve the acute workout along with the setting up for a better muscular adaptation after the workout because you had a better workout. So at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about here all the way around. But I do want to tell you that I'm going to be talking to the new formula that will be out probably in it's going to be a few months before it's out, but it's very close to the old one. So it's got the same ingredients, but I'll talk to you what the differences are as I go through here. It makes it easier for me because it takes forever to put one of these prezos together because it all comes from my PDSRG. I've got to extract all the stuff that makes sense, and then that's why you'll see some references and so forth. Those are notes to know where everything is. You don't have to really pay much attention to those, but they are there for those that want it. And it maps to this, the PDSRG. So if you click on that links live and it takes you to the NO7RAGE document where all the science comes from. Okay, so we're going to jump right into Rule 4 when I do a performance lecture for proteins, college teams, or just a performance lecture for any type of group. We always go through the first rule, is eating the right amount of calories, then eating the right percentage of protein, fats, and carbs based on your goal and all that, right? And then, of course, timing is 3, but 4 is supplement properly, beyond baseline. You all know what baseline is, and I'm not going to beat it up. You'll see it here as it sets up the rest. Beyond baseline being your multivitamin mineral and your 1 gram per pound of protein daily, all right? So bottom line is, so the goal of performance in supplementation, performance now, so beyond baseline, remember that, is that when everything else is equal, including you're getting your multi, you're getting your proper protein all the day and the right calories, supplementing should improve performance and size outcomes compared to non-supplemented state. Duh, that's what it's supposed to do, right? But the goal for that is to avoid plateaus and create better workouts leading to greater muscular adaptation from the single workout. You can build on each other and staving off the inevitable, which means at some point you're going the other way, right? So bottom line is there's 2 categories. And this is something you all should remember. There are 2 categories to performance supplementation. One is the acute performance category. In other words, take it, the workout should be better. That workout, that competition outcome should be better than before, if everything else is equal. And that would also simultaneously increase the adaptation potential because you did more work, more muscles going on, you were just more explosive. So that's called number 1, is supply energy enhancing compounds to maximize each training session or competition outcome. These are the evidence-based supplements that can do that. These are the 3 that are in NO7, which is why they're highlighted. We'll just look at them quickly. You guys know how they work. But carbohydrate is the other evidence-based to make sure your glycogen stores are full, and then NO production, which we have in there. Okay, so the second category, which is overlooked because people don't think about it, is to speed. So once that's done, how do you make sure you increase the adaptation period, right? Maximize the adaptation that was triggered by this, right? Bigger, stronger, faster. That's what the goal is. So speed enhanced recovery by minimizing the breakdown during your great workout while maximizing synthesis to produce continual desired muscular adaptations. And the reason I say muscular adaptations is because every sport is different. The workout should be designed around your sport or around what you're trying to do. Maybe it's just size. Maybe it's just the average person in the gym. But the muscular adaptation will take place if the right nutrition is there that was triggered by the actual activity. And so creatine, as you can see, crosses over. Of course, essential amino acids are in there and all this. And these are the things, these are evidence-based supplements to maximize adaptation. Protein's obvious, right? And creatine crosses over. It also improves recovery time using creatine. All right, so there you go. I just want to set it up. So here's the thing. So supplementing, all of you should be separated in 2 categories: acute performance and long-term, better full recovery performance enhancement. Because obviously you recover better, longer-term recovery. So you would end up with continuous better workouts to allow greater continuous adaptation. And by the way, if I'm doing this for like Olympic athletes, or I'm doing this for, in a special venue with, professional athletes, everybody knows this, first and last place is often separated by fractions of a seconds to seconds. right? So that's why, depending on the sport, 60 to 100% of athletes supplement to get all that. So here it is. This is baseline for health and recovery. We all know it, but it works for all goals. So at a very minimum, just doing this helps all goals because you're doing that category too. We all know what it is. There's your protein and your workout days before and after protein. There's your not fit protein in your multivitamin, right? And just if you're not getting that. But category 2 is complete recovery for long-term gains, including, and when I do this for athletes, trust me, they are in getting baseline, including reducing sick days and injury potential because you forgot full recovery. All right, so let's get to the big guy, NO7RaGE. And it is a signature product for us. I created it at 24, that's a 24-hour fitness when we were at Apex. I created the very first product out there, even before BSN, was a nitric oxide that matched with amino boost. Put them out at the same time, did a huge tour, and the rest is kind of history. So it became a signature product. But this is just a summary page. So if you just remember one thing, it's all on this page, everything you need. This is what it is. Maximize adaptation potential. Remember, this is category 1, everybody, right? It's continuous better workouts that transfers to the field of play. So if you're an athlete, obviously, all that work that you do in the gym, you want it to transfer to the field of play. And even before you get on the field of play, you want it to transfer. By the way, these are all the bullets here that we're going to go over, and we'll come back to it at the end. Bottom line, pre-workout, right? Stimulus, stimulate your pre-workout, anabolic environment enhancer, setting it up. Enhanced motivation, training session, anabolic environment, overall training outcomes. This is the current formula. I will show you the new one when we get there. All right, and by the way, the sooner, Josh Keller here, the sooner we sell out of the current one, the faster we get to the newer one. So move it. All right, so here's the goal, right? The goal of NO7 is supply of pre-workout. Pre-activity, by the way, the reason I slash activity, it doesn't have to be a workout. By the time I retired from sport, I was long retired by the time I used this, but I would do it before basketball. I played adult league basketball. I used it before a basketball game, but also use it before I walk into a board meeting. It just opens up the brain, and you'll see this when you use it. All right, and to improve desire to train and deliver acute performance benefits, right? So basically individual training session or competition outcomes. That's what we want to do. Adding up to long-term benefits by maximizing each training session, inducing adaptation potential, right? Via continuous stronger workout sessions that would build on each other and help avoid training plateaus. That's the goal. Kind of already went over that. But now, what's the rationale for a multiple ingredient pre-workout ingredient supplement? That's what we're talking about. So what's the rationale for that? Besides convenience, obviously it's convenient. Otherwise, you got 7 different products sitting on your shelf and you're mixing it yourself and you're trying to figure out how much of this and that. So convenience is obvious, but there's also another reason. So you get the right layer all the way through the body when you take it. So these ingredients are individually known to accomplish size, performance, and nitric oxide increases in the NO7. So you get the ergogenic well-known performance enhancing benefits of creatine for size and strength, beta-alanine for force production and anaerobic endurance, or what we like to call quality workouts. Caffeine, gluconolactone, and taurine kind of work together. Caffeine also increases muscle, but also mental performance and focus, right? And then you combine that with nitrosogene, which is a different form of arginine, and L-citrulline to enhance your nitric oxide production to increase the vasodilation and amplify all this shit up here, right? And the training session response. And then you add glycerol to bring muscle water into the muscle to superhydrate it, right? So you end up with the muscle pump improving all the cellular activities you're trying to do. So that's the rationale for putting these things together in an even uniform flow all the way through. And if these ingredients simultaneously ingested, they have additive positive effects immediately on the playing field, the field of play, and setting the stage to maximize each training session's contribution, right, to various muscular adaptation depending on your sport. So that's the idea, that's the rationale for all of them. So at the end of the day, improved acute performance, setting up the stage to maximize the training session, enhanced adaptation, creating an environment for continuous positive change. So everything is really here. And you now finish that with the proper nutrition after. All right, creatine, we all know how that works. We just, it's obviously the first 10 seconds of our burst of energy and so forth, whether jumping, whether it be any of these things. Bottom line, for anybody trying to improve related to increasing lean body mass, improving strength, power activities such as sprinting, weightlifting, and jumping, and again, transferring over to the field of play for all these type athletes. We call them intermittent athletes. For those of you that don't know, in science, we call them intermittent athletes. That's because they're part aerobic, part anaerobic, right? And the creatine benefits them probably the most, outside of obviously just your pure strength and power athletes in the gym. But anyway, increased muscle creatine, we're trying to get more in there so you have more to start with, and then the regeneration. So your next set, your next jump, your next everything will increase, right? And this is a great graphic of its mechanisms of action, right? And we do know it improves muscle performance, it delays fatigue by buffering lactate, and increases training intensity. All of that ends up with increased protein synthesis, and that's unarguable anywhere in the world. But you'll also see that athletes with low creatine intake, so you give it to a vegan, you give creatine to a vegan, they blow up because they're getting zero creatine from their diet. And so they were what we call super responders versus responders. And there's people that are weak responders to creatine, right? Maybe they have high creatine levels, or they just have a polymorphisms that allows them to produce more creatine. You know, so at the end of the day, ones with low creatine, it makes a huge difference in their workout. Any exerciser you're working with that wants to break a plateau, right? Creatine works. We're not talking about that. We're talking about creatine specifically. And then now you're seeing it prescribed to older adults seeking healthier aging because it keeps them moving. It keeps them from losing muscle. It's actually a sarcopenia, a treatment right now. But again, we always leave that to the physician to go ahead and let them know that. Okay, so anyway, that's what creatine, obviously it works pretty well everywhere you go. Now, you're going to see what I do at the very end of each one of these singular ingredients because there's a reason to this. Effective creatine dosing, 5 grams, 4 days. 5 grams 4 times a day for the first 5 to 7 days, right? Now you're loaded. Then you end up with a 5 gram day and maintain until the training and end of your training phase, which is 16, 12, 18 weeks, depending on your sport, whatever you're doing. But the bottom line, the reason I'm putting this here, you'll see as we get to the end of this thing about when you combine all these things. All right, beta-alanine, all right, basically it's going to be the same group, but increased muscle carnosine to reduce exercise-induced acidosis, but by a different mechanism than creatine. Creatine buffers lactate, but beta-alanine does. When I say beta-alanine, I should say carnosine. But you can't just drink carnosine. They actually made that years ago. People made carnosine, drink it because that's the molecule you want in the body that donates its electrons to buffer, to change the pH in the blood so you can work out longer and more intense, right? Well, unfortunately, there's an enzyme on the outside of the muscle that breaks down carnosine. It's carnosinase, right? It's an enzyme that breaks it down, but you can't get much in there. So beta-alanine is the Trojan horse. Beta-alanine easily gets in the muscle, and it combines with histidine, and it creates carnosine in the muscle. And so now you've got that lactate being buffered there, right? Potential beneficiaries identical to what you just saw in the previous slide. There's no exception there. This kind of gives you all the different sort of mechanisms that carnosine helps with performance. The anti-stress, it also works as an antioxidant. And of course, the pH balance we just talked about, which is the anti-fatigue effect, and it does decrease pain. So there is a reduction in the pain perception in athletes. So at the end of the day, look down here, I put in red. We increase buffering capacity and improve performance in high intensity exercises, but enhance the quality of training. And what that really means, maximum amount of exertion a subject can sustain. That's when that tingling you get. If you guys take enough beta-alanine, you'll get that tingling. You can tell that's just knocking out. You really don't feel when you need to stop. So you combine that with creatine, as you can see already. But here's the thing, the effective dose is a minimum of 3.2 to about 7 grams. And you got to be on it for about a 4-week minimum before really the benefits super kick in. Remember that. These are important notes I'm putting at the bottom here when you're doing a multi-ingredient product. No one does what you're going to see, right? And by the way, this is the one product I can't find a per pound. I've looked at every study on beta-alanine. I did find one finally about 38 milligrams per pound. I'm a per pound guy with everything. I do all our creatine per pound too, and that's all in the regular lectures for each one of the ingredients. All right, caffeine. I don't need to tell anybody here. This pretty much works. And the goal of caffeine is always to delay fatigue, but also deliver positive cognitive benefits such as improving training desire, reaction time. In fact, you can't even become a commercial pilot unless you can tolerate caffeine because it significantly improves reaction time, and focus by blocking adenosine receptors. So there's a little, you guys, but when you block adenosine receptors, I think I might have mentioned this in one of my last lectures, but you got your whole body's full of what we call adenosine receptors. When you burn energy, lots of it, right? That's ATP. You got an adenosine base, AMP. The monophosphate is floating around the body, and then the adenosine base goes into the adenosine receptors and tells you to slow down. Well, guess what? Caffeine, the major molecule in there, is what we call a methylxanthine. When you take caffeine, that methylxanthine, guess what it looks like? Adenosine. It's like identical to adenosine molecule. So guess where it goes? It goes into the receptor of the adenosine. Now the AMP, now the adenosine can't get in there. And guess what? Boom. You know, you're up. You're hyper. And some people get overstimulated. So because what happens, your sympathetic nervous system goes crazy. You start releasing all types of stress hormone, norepinephrine, adrenaline, right? Noradrenaline, norepinephrine is being released, right? And then you've got all this stuff flying around and increases your endurance performance. It also is glycogen sparing because it increases fat burning. So it really is one of those sort of wonder chemicals all the way around, and then power and strength as well. So, and again, these are just like all the reference notes for there's really nothing it doesn't do here. And by the way, I should tell you guys, if caffeine was discovered today, it'd be a prescription. Not because it's harmful, it's because it works too ridiculously good for about everything. And this just came out. This is from International Sports Science, International Society of Sports Nutrition. This just came to 2021. This is their final little thing about caffeine after doing meta-analysis since the beginning of time, right? Caffeine is a universal performance enhancer, including muscular endurance, movement velocity and muscular strength, sprinting, jumping, throwing performance, myriad aerobic and anaerobic sports-specific activities like we just talked about, whether it be football, baseball, any of those. Cognitive functions such as focus, reaction time, and vigilance. Bingo. So anyway, now you get the idea. Now, here are the effective doses. Another thing to remember. You have to remember it because I'll bring it all together at the end. If you're just trying to improve sort of mental acuity, right, you can take a small dose. Even a cup of coffee will get you there, right? Good coffee. Exercise performance, though, it is by weight. You got to go by weight, and it's right in here per pound. So remember, I'm doing that for a reason on all these. Now, taurine. Basically, at the end of the day, taurine is in there to do additive effects for caffeine's performance. That's why you see it in energy drinks. Through its actions in the central nervous system and muscle calcium actions. We know we have to have calcium to make a muscle contraction inside the muscle. But taurine can actually regulate the calcium inside the muscle, maybe give you a little bit more performance, which is outside of what caffeine does. Caffeine's a little bit involved there. But taurine may interact with certain neurotransmitters as you just do things. But if you look at meta-analysis, so what I did is I looked at about 50 studies on energy drinks. And the degree of improvement was associated with the taurine dosage. They all had caffeine, but the more taurine was in it, the more improvement they had. So that was the final conclusion of that. And it also, there's the mechanisms of action throughout the body. The two that we're concerned about right here, it also facilitates calcium-dependent excitation in the contraction process, right? So this shows you here, it's a great little, from DeLuca, a great little over here showing on the sarcoplasmic reticulum as calcium comes in. If you can regulate this, you might get an extra rep or two going, really depending on your calcium levels that are in there. But it enhances calcium pumping rate. That's what it does there. And then over here, it also increases volumization, which we all know contributes to hypertrophy as well. So you're adding a little, affecting the cellular volume through osmotic stress from exercise. And then it also has some antioxidant things. Effective dosing now, another important one, 1.6 to 3.1 grams daily. You can see results and all that. It's pretty dose dependent though. You'll see why we bumped it up to this. Okay, gluconolactone. I always used to think this is window dressing, and I still kind of think it is. It's just it's an all energy drink, so you might as well throw it in there. We do know it ain't gonna hurt anybody for sure, and the body naturally makes it. By the way, the glucuronides that are made in the liver, they actually do detoxify. That's why you see these energy drinks making claims about detoxification. We do not make any, none. I'm only putting it in there because it's part of other energy drinks and part of the formula with taurine and caffeine, and people are used to seeing that. And it's completely harmless, obviously. But an effective dose is potentially 6 to 1,000, you know? And half the time I'm making shit up when I say that. I went through every study that's out there to find it. No one can find anything really that great about it. But I will tell you this, when you look at them all, energy drinks that include these three in combination, right? And I wrote a whole thesis on it in the Workout Extreme section of the PDSRG if you want it. But at the end of the day, here's the bottom line with that gluconolactone, right? And even taurine, for that matter. Caffeine dosing is effective. We already know that. We just saw that. Improving cognitive and physical performance across the board. And gluconolactone and taurine do not depress its effects, right? So you're not going to hurt anything. But they may produce a synergistic effect, as I've talked about with taurine almost for sure, to allow a lower dose of caffeine to produce higher dose effects. And that can be big for people that are caffeine sensitive. And you'll see why we designed our NO7 that way, which is pretty much groundbreaking when you see it coming up. All right. And again, I already mentioned this, the meta-analysis found taurine to be the primary ingredient and possibly dose dependent that enhances the outcomes with energy drinks. And that's the combination that we have except we have the right dosage in, of course, the NO7. All right, you take all of that we just looked at, right? You look at all those fantastic ingredients there, and we combine that with nitric oxide vasodilators for the pump to make all of that stuff better. And the two ingredients here, nitrosogene and L-citrulline. And the glycerol is not a vasodilator, but what it does, it brings water to the cell, intracellular and extracellular, which is really unusual. Creatine is pretty much intracellular. So this is how this actually works with creatine. But put these three together, you get that muscle pump, improving all the cellular activities that are taking place because you're flushing nutrients in and out. And that's what that feeling is. And more importantly, that pump isn't just something that feels good. Cell volume or cell swelling is clearly associated with hypertrophy. That is something the cell stretching itself pushes against and tells the body you need to build muscle. So again, there's something to all that beyond making these nutrients go in and out faster. All right, so citrulline very quickly. And the reason our new formula is going to be citrulline malate. So again, I didn't want to have to do this thing twice. It took 6 days to put this prezo together for you guys, all right? So on all the news, so I'll just talk to you. The current one has citrulline. Citrulline malate will be in the new formula. But the goal simply here with it is to convert it to arginine in the body. Same thing with beta-alanine converting to carnosine. That's how you got to get arginine in the body up by using citrulline, right? Leading to increases of both arginine and nitric acid. And by the way, for those of you that don't know, nitric oxide inside the body really is a signal. It's a signal to the muscle to relax, thus resulting in a vasodilation, which allows what we call hyperemia, right? Increased blood flow. So it's coming in. That's what NO does in the body. And it's also something that we give heart patients. Okay, so just quickly, citrulline converts to arginine and nitric oxide by the kidney. So citrulline comes into here, and it gets converted to arginine. Now arginine's in the blood safely. If you put arginine here, it just gets eaten up by arginates, which is why citrulline is the Trojan horse for this. It ends up arginine, comes up here, and here's the beauty. It splits now to nitric oxide, and it splits off to, because this is nitric oxide synthase. So it converts part of it here to nitric oxide, splits off the citrulline, and recycles the citrulline back through here, comes back in here again, arginine back here. So you end up with significantly more arginine inside the body by taking citrulline. I know it sounds weird, but that's because of this over here. Now watch. So there was, of course, they tested this back in 2008 was when it hit the market. And they were doing this for clinical reasons too, because it's important to get arginine up in clinic people without having to inject them with arginine, right? So you can take an oral. So look at this. You end up with the effect of citrulline versus arginine on blood arginine, which is what you need to get nitric oxide up, almost double with less. So here is the amount in the blood, right? It's called area under the curve, right? How long it lasts there. And now you've got about 3.2 grams of arginine gets you up here. 1.5 grams gets you even with that of citrulline, and almost double with just even less than you have there. So that's what the goal is all the way around. So the new formula, you can imagine now, this is important. This is important for the new formula. I tripled the citrulline. So be ready. I tripled this from what is going with the old one. And we added malate. So but just so you know, when you say citrulline malate or citrulline citrate, what it means is malate is a salt form. We add a salt to it, so it's more is absorbed. because all your receptors are looking for different forms of that. And if malate happens to be one they just like. So now you have malate attached to it. Now, here's what's cool about that, because malate alone may have a performance enhancement effect once it splits from citrulline, because as you remember from your old science class, malate is part of the citric acid cycle, or should I say, the energy cycle, the Krebs cycle. So there's maybe a performance enhancement, which is why citrulline malate works by itself. Every ingredient we've talked about so far works by itself, right? And then there's the malate moiety that might also have its own separate energy production. So we've got citrulline malate in the new formula at 3 times the former amount. Now, an effective dosing for significant NO increase is 3 to 8 grams a day of citrulline malate. That's all the new science. All right, nitrosogene. This is nothing more than a specialized form, and these guys were able to identify it and patent it, use it for clinical purposes as well. It's an inositol, it's an arginine, right? But it's an inositol stabilized, so it doesn't get eaten up by the enzyme on the outside. And you talk about getting nitrous oxide up quickly, this gets it done, right? So basically what the goal with this is, it is better form of arginine to enhance plasma arginine, which is what I'm doing for the NO production. And when combined with creatine malate, which works by a different mechanism, boom, you get a twofer going here. And here's the early study, or not the recent studies with nitrosogene. It shows you, okay, does it really work? Yes. Significant increase in arginine levels. Look how long it lasts, as long as any workout's going to last for sure, right? So you've got that. Okay, well, what is it? Okay, you raised it. Then what happened to the nitric oxide? How'd that come out? How'd the pump go? Well, they measured this. So it's 1.5 grams of nitrosogene, right? And versus 8 grams of citrulline malate. So these are two different groups of people here. Well, actually, I'll wash out same person to make sure there wasn't any crossover was done. Now watch this. And then, of course, placebo. So this is the pump, or the blood flow is measured by a flow meter. It's called flow mediated dilation increase, right, from each supplement. So you can see the significant percentage increase versus the placebo, actually, which was natural. It would go down in a placebo during exercise. And both of these were even. Now, think about that. We're going to add both together. And that's what the idea is with bringing it all into there. Now, and the effective dosage, this is not disputable, 1.5 grams a day. And by the way, here's a little side note. Just this last year, a great study of gamers, video gamers, right? Esports, all of these different things. They used them, like 100 of them, put them there, and they used nitrosogene versus placebo. It improved cognition, mood states, and mental performance in video gamers. Brand new reference. So that's what I'm saying. This thing just works for just opening your mind up. And that's nitrosogene by itself. Remember that, guys. So we're going to put all this stuff together here in a minute. And then finally, glycerol, which is nothing but a harmless sugar alcohol that can, just increase osmolality, which is obviously, if you increase the solutes in the blood, we all know what happens, right? Just like when you go out and you eat soy sauce and everything else, you're kind of swollen the next day when you have sushi and soy sauce, because all the salt's in there. So water gets retained to dilute it to where it needs to be. Well, that's what glycerol does. And by the way, you should know glycerol is used by endurance athletes at very high doses. And this is giving you guys remember your chemistry class here. You add glycerol into this. So this is like your compartments. Here's your total body water. Here's fluid, right, at baseline. You see the solutes in here. Well, you get more solutes. What's going to happen? The water's got to get there and make the concentration even. So that's how you end up swelling water. And the reason endurance athletes use this here at 0.5 gram per pound over a 2 to 4 hour period. They drink it. That holds the water in so they don't have to drink during the event, which causes gastric distress when they're running. So this is what it's commonly used for. So it got into the bodybuilding world, but you can't do it at that dose. I mean, before a workout, you got to do it 2 or 4 hours, so that's not going to happen. So the proper dose for the workout pump, if you get out there somewhere between 1.5 and 5 grams, is generally accepted for a workout pump. Just the right amount of water that kind of adds to the whole thing. Okay, so now, as you guys know, the problem has always been the glycerol powder. Glycerol powder in our NO7 is notoriously unstable and hygroscopic, which means it absorbs water like it's supposed to. So the second you open the container, it might get a little bit, a little clumpy. So the new formula, though, we found a manufacturer that says this glycerol won't do that, and a new way of mixing it. So the new formula should eliminate that and some of the complaints you might get. And I'm going to cover that at the end as well. Okay, so let's summarize this thing, right? And here it is. Basically, you got a pre-workout activity, NSF. Oh, by the way, the new product will be NSF certified for sport. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it before because with all the ingredients in there, they said, now you can't combine caffeine with creatine. Really? I mean, no one takes creatine, has a Starbucks in the morning. I mean, every athlete in the world does. So anyway, they finally got over their 1920s mental attitude and said, okay, so it's still going to be submitted for NSF certified for sport as well. But we've always never worried about it because our athletes, including, as you know, both my sons are drug tested professional athletes. So, they're all tested and they all use NO7 and they're getting it from the same place where everything else is NO7 certified. So we already know it's fine, but you got to pay the extortion fees, for everything here to NO7. All right. So anyway, pre-workout, NSF certified, creatine, beta-alanine, caffeine, taurine, gluconolactone, nitrosamine, citrulline, malate, and glycerol. In clinically effective doses, there's the key word for anyone not adverse to caffeine, right? That wants a pre-training, sustained stimulus, alertness, motivation to deliver enhanced overall training sessions or competition outcomes through greater prolonged strength and power production during activities, delaying fatigue, decreasing feelings of exertion, and the muscle pump. All right, so anyway, and of course, it's for everybody we just talked about, experience. The way, if you're an experienced strength and size athlete or an intermittent athlete, we just talked about, this the whole goal of using is to break through plateaus, right? And so we put them in muscle stats for them. They're at the end, so you guys can take a look at it. But that's also on our website. Remind you, if you click on our website in your area there, creatine, muscle, and performance stats are all up there. How you have to put it all together. And then how about this? A pre-workout enduring formula for anyone. Anybody that's just, just like not feeling great or something, right? You need to pick me up to get started. But anyway, anybody looking for any of these things here, increases iron exercise, increased strength and power output, greater muscle endurance, longer enhanced alertness and focus, enhanced nitric oxide to induce hyperemia. That's your new word for the day, everybody. All right, improving muscle vasodilation, blood volume, leading to greater muscle swelling and hypertrophy. So anyone looking for those things, and finally also reducing muscle damage. So bottom line is everything's there on one slide for you as far as your summary and who would use it, and those are the benefits from it right there. That was on the front slide as well. Bottom line, maximize training activity, including field of play and the body's adaptation potential. Want to train and continuously train better, faster, and longer term gains. Okay, so unique features now. This is the thing we're waiting for. So between Muscle Explode and NO Explode and all the other big sellers out there, they're not even in the same league, and especially with the new formula. Keep that in mind. First of all, what we have, and this is your number one thing, there is no window dressing on this puppy, right? Validated, safe, and effective individual ingredient components, and I'll show you what that on a frequently asked question in a minute. Contains a high dose. You're going to find anybody with that much citrulline malate in there, and it's all done by weight properly, right? A more effective substrate than arginine, of course, for the NO production, nitrosamine, as we talked about, which works through a different mechanism. So we've combined those two things. You don't see that too often. Some people do. And then the glycerol, new one, a stable form. So hopefully we'll be able to get that maximum effect without too much clumping going on. And this is what's rare. A rare combination of clinically effective doses of both caffeine and hydrous. And by the way, caffeine and hydrous is quite different than a cup of coffee. And hydrous is the caffeine molecules without water, right? So anhydrous, because that makes it more accurate, right? If you actually get the right dosage, you can't do that with a cup of coffee. You don't know how much caffeine's in there. We actually measure it when we use it as a molecule, as an ingredient. And then taurine, where taurine may significantly amplify. So we have the right combination of taurine ratio to caffeine. No proprietary blends listing. This is big, right? We're getting to the punchline here. Full individual ingredient amounts disclosure to prove clinically effective doses. Also validated by third-party testing. And the flavor, most people really like the flavor. I've heard you guys arguing over that, but ours are very flavorful compared to some of the other ones out there. Arguing over lemonade and blue raz. I like lemonade myself. And then, so you can use it as a standalone, and I'll show you what that looks like, or you can use it in muscle performance. But if you use it as a standalone, you've got to do things a little different, right? Here's the big one. Dosage instructions by weight to yield significantly greater individual results. And Rod, I'm glad you're on here, Rodney. And well, I'm glad you're on here because he's a guy that's sensitive to caffeine, so he can do this differently compared to competitive products. So no one's ever done this before. You're going to see it here. So here, let's finish up with dosing. Pre-activity, dosing is a pre-activity stimulus. Dosing as a standalone to make sure you establish effective creatine and beta-alanine levels, because you can't miss a day. Here you can miss a day. Here you can't. And then in muscle performance stacks. So let's look at this. It is designed the new one, and the other one you can do this with too. It's just not as accurate as the new one is going to be with this. Designed for perfect dosing symmetry. So stay with me. One scoop is designed purposely. It took me a long time to kind of figure this out based on everything put together by weight. Ingredients, one scoop is designed individually. You'll see that in a second here, what that is, to control total recommended dose. You can control it, such as a half scoop by half scoop increments. So one scoop is going to be 2.5 grams of creatine, 2 grams of beta-alanine, 150 grams of caffeine, 3 grams of citrulline, 1.6 taurine. These numbers are important. I know they'll be on the label. I'm just saying, I'm giving it to you now you're reflecting back why I wrote that shit on the bottom of those slides, right? Because they're there for a reason. You're not going to find this in a regular formula. 1 gram of nitrosogene and then glycerol. So if you were caffeine sensitive like Rodney, or you're tingling from beta-alanine and you don't like that, most people actually like it, okay? You can split the total dose in half scoop increments, ingesting half a scoop, no less than an hour and a half apart, so that the total dosage is consumed before and during the workout as necessary. So it just gives you an idea how you would divide that up in 1.5 hours, right? And get the final dose there. So this is the brilliance of this product. All right, here's how it's listed by body weight. If you're under 150, a scoop and a half will get you there because you are you're obviously smaller, you got less muscle and everything else, but 1.5 scoops brings it up to an effective dose for this person, right? Now you move to 2, and now you're an effective dose for almost anybody, period, all the way around. But I'd like to go a little further because our world's strongest men, they use 4 scoops. They're 450-pound freaks, right? And we take care of pretty much all of them. And these guys all use about 4.5 scoops of this thing, because you can. So I'll let everybody kind of decide. But we do this here at 2.5 scoops because of the caffeine content. There is an upper limit for caffeine for the average person. It's probably lower than than it should be, but that's what it is. We stay within there to satisfy not just NSF, but everybody else out there that regulates the food, the supplement industry. So do not exceed 3 scoops. So this is brilliantly done, and I'm just telling you, by matching studies and getting this all the way across. All right, so as a pre-workout training product, you just take it on training days. It's not necessary, right? Maybe you're going to a board meeting, take it then, whatever. But that's as a pre-training stimulus product only. But if you want a pre-workout stimulus and a standalone, because that's all the money you've got. You're not going to use creatine monohydrate to load or extreme creatine because this fits into your budget. NO7, you can get there. For creatine and beta-alanine, you can get to those levels. So you take as listed, as we just saw on the previous slide, but on non-training days, you take it again. Same total dose, anytime during the day, at least 5 hours before sleep, right? You can take it all at once or just split it up because you have to take it daily or you lose the creatine and beta-alanine. You got to start over. And it takes 28 days at that dosage. It'll take 28 days to get full beta-alanine and full creatine storage. And you can just stay with it, period. So you can use that as your creatine and beta-alanine supplement. And then in the muscle stacks, you guys have all seen these before. I've showed you where all these are. You click them on, and I listed them here for you just so you guys would see them here. It's a good download for your trainers. If they want one for themselves, or they got clients they're working with here where money is no object. There's baseline, always first, right? And then of course amino boost was in all the stacks as well. There's your protein stack, and then NO7. And that's a daily thing. So here's NO7 with baseline. Here is NO7 with creatine monohydrate right here. Boom. And you can split them. You can start the NO7 on the first week or second week or whatever you want. put them together that way. But as you know, then if you've got enough creatine on the day off, you won't need the NO7 on your non-training days. And here it is in the NO7 with extreme creatine. You've got it here as well. And you're taking this daily, so you don't need NO7 on non-training days again. And then the super stack, where this is it. This is the Big Mac Daddy here. This has got it all. And I always like these stacks, if I didn't tell you that before, I always like starting people, get them on baseline with protein stacking. So you've got baseline here and amino boost. First week, they're adjusting to all that. Second week, I'm adding creatine monohydrate, and I'm going to load them up. So I get a loading phase, and I can drop the creatine monohydrate, because the third week, or the sixth day, depending on how I load them, the sixth day of the second week, could be the third week. Then I go to extreme creatine XXL, and I drop creatine monohydrate, because I won't need it now, unless they're a giant, then they can add more of that if they want. And you won't be working with those guys. And then in the fourth week, bingo, NO7RAGE. Now you're going to be jacked, stacked, and Big Mac. This is like the ultimate all the way around. It's always my favorite. I think the NFL linemen get them on this stuff too. It's pretty cool. All right. So safety. Listen, trust me, you guys don't do anything unless it's perfectly safe. You know, I've got a lot at stake here all the way around. So safety with efficacy. And these are all, this is weird. I love this slide, right? Safety with efficacy of these multi-ingredient products, right? Containing at least creatine, beta-alanine, caffeine. Now, these are all the studies that tested the safety, right? Individual ingredient safety data is all in the PDSRG, so you can look at that separately. But why .fit is better? Because look up here. I would argue all the ones out there are safe, because most of them don't work very well. And it's uncovered. I'm not just saying that, okay? So while many of these multi-ingredient pre-workout supplements contain these ingredients, and they appear safe, they tested them, there's the studies. When formulated properly, in established effective doses, if it's formulated properly, demonstrate efficacy. There's studies here. But sport and fitness practitioners, that's you guys, and all your coaches, should advise all clients never to purchase products with undisclosed purported individual active ingredient amounts, generally tied to the same proprietary blend. And here's the studies that came out just last year about this from Jagam et al. Identified the ingredient profile of the top selling commercial available multi-level, and yeah, multi-ingredient, right? Workout supplements. And you guys know which one I'm talking about, or which ones I'm talking about, to compare ingredient dosages to known efficacious doses, and found this. The average beta-alanine per serving in all your top sellers fell below the recommended effective dose. The average caffeine was near the low end, down at 1.7 grams, right? So that's like a 150-pound person would barely be okay with that. Almost half the ingredients, this is the aha moment for all of you that have experience. I mean, I've been saying this for 20 years when they first started coming out with proprietary blends. Almost half the ingredients in the products were listed as part of a proprietary blend with undisclosed amounts of each ingredient. When you add the total grams and milligrams of blends exposed, and these are, by the way, this is quote unquote from the study from International Society of Sports Nutritionists. All right, and you're adding the total grams and milligrams of the blends expose the impossibility that many components such as creatine, taurine, and citrulline could be at the established effective dose. In other words, I don't care how you spun it, when you look, there was only 8 grams, you put all those ingredients in there, there's no way they're all in the effective dose. That's why .fit is better. So here's some great, my favorite slide Rob ever did. Okay, so I make sure I have it here as a summary slide for all you. Right at the very beginning, there's your stuff to desire to work out harder, the ingredients there. Your caffeine crosses over to the performance side as well, better, stronger workouts. And then, boom, blow it up with nitric acid, right? Nitric oxide, right? And then you got the vasodilation, and you end up with big fat. All right, I'm done. Oh, workout extreme, you guys got that? It's the same. Workout extreme is the same thing. It's just we take out the creatine, beta-alanine because some people just don't want this idea. But all of the effects of caffeine and all the other things, so you have the greater desire to train, but you just don't necessarily, you get delayed fatigue, boost energy levels without necessarily gaining weight. And we actually make this particularly for endurance athletes. And most of our trainers actually use it to get them through the day, if they're not using something else. So just keep that in mind. And then the new formula, you should know, this is NO7RageSuppOfMonth2, basically without creatine, BetaAlanine, and the NO booster. So you got the taurine and gluconolactone. The new formula has been updated, NSF certified for sport, and ignore the directions on it because NSF wouldn't allow us to put real directions on it. They said, nah, that's too much caffeine for people. I go, it's not. It's what's in the literature that works. So I put the dosages in here. They're in your PDSRGs. So don't worry, it's all there. Anyway, these are just you guys already know what's in there. And you won't find a product like this in the market either. That's what's so cool about this as well. And the caffeine anhydrous, same thing. I just want to make sure you guys understand that makes it accurate. You can't dose with caffeine like this. You really need to get the anhydrous form in order to dose properly. The typical dosage, I put them all in here. This tells you how to get an endurance athlete to use it. I really laid that out, running and cycling and so forth. You take 5 capsules, 40 to 60 minutes, right there. And this is the milligrams per pound in case you want to use that. But if you're competing, experiment with the proper dose. Don't just start this then. You got to experiment and know what that dose is for you because everybody's a little different. Football, for any of your intermittent athletes, they can take 5 before the game, before their big event or whatever it may be. And then any adult not bothered by stimulants, the pre-workout or event energy enhancement, right? Just a daily pick-me-up, work good. And the taurine is at the right level all the way around. Now, if you use it regularly, just to use it, we always recommend cycling 3 weeks on, 1 week off, no reason. Just kind of get the bump back again. A little abstination is kind of good every once in a while when it comes to something like caffeine, when it comes to this much caffeine anyway, at one time. All right. And here, if you guys ever want to, here's an endurance stack that I do for like Olympic endurance athletes and so forth. This has got those. You can see baseline. It's got all that. You don't see obviously creatine because they wouldn't use creatine in endurance sporting. But here is how you use Workout Extreme there. This is very, very, very detailed. So on training days, they would use it every other training day, right? They would take 5 every other training day. Do not take with any other stimulants, obviously, all that. On competition day now, 5 days before competition, they discontinue use, abstain. And there's evidence that you'll get a better bump on competition day. So that's all laid out for them with their meal plans and so forth. So I just want to give you that. Okay, it's your turn, guys. Oh, I did want to get the clump in there. Why don't you put it back there? This is for any of you guys that have to answer the clump question. I call it the clump to get the pump. So this is a frequently asked question. I received NO7 when it came to a semi-solid mask as powder. Well, there's 2 versions that are still out there. There's a very old version, still hasn't expired because we renew almost every 6 months. Hasn't expired, but it would clump more than other ones. So there may be a few older NO7 products floating around in stores because they didn't rotate their stock. So this explains all that, right? Or they haven't purchased the second edition, which is the one that's out there right now, right? And it clumped to a point of having to break it up. You receive that product, it's an older lot again, and the store is just not rotating. So we will send you a new one. Just let us know if you got a customer like that. We will send them a new one. Don't worry about it. This is a frequently asked question. But we also tell them the potency of the product's same. You just got to break it up, shake up the thing. You can still use it. It's still fine. All that's good, right? But we don't want you to send it back, so do whatever you want with it, right? The older product is still safe. Now, a note, the current lot now, right, you might show some bioclumping, but that's after you open it because the glycerol will bring in the water as soon as it can, right? So kind of seal it as tight as you can, always shake before using, and that's on the container. But we don't have hardly any complaints on that one at all. We just let people know ahead of time. Our next edition, the one we're talking about, will eliminate all clumping, as we found a glycerol manufacturer with a specialized formulation to address the issue. Additionally, the new formula will deliver the improved training, as we can stay tuned on that. All right, that's it. And then I put some myths back here for all you guys on creatine myths. It doesn't cause cramping. It actually helps prevent injury, and it actually decreases cramps by 60%. Just some old stuff still floating around. And caffeine doesn't lead to you peeing too much. Doesn't lead to diuretic. That's an old myth as well. It's just the fluids you put it in, obviously. And there's no fluids in this. So I just want you to get all that. Okay.